Coaches and athletic directors, it's Corbin Smith with MTTS Sports Group. Let me ask you a quick question. What are the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to leadership development and culture sustainability? At MTTS Sports Group, we have created a system through leadership speaking and training, staff alignment seminars, as well as culture seminars that address those issues. We also offer a 6-hour fully immersive leadership stress test for your teams called the Tour Crucible. If you are interested at all, go to www.mttsportsgroup.com and let us know how we can help. Enjoy the podcast. But let me go ahead and introduce you so we can get going on this, because we could talk about that all day long. But David Todd Wilkinson, head football coach at McCollum High School in San Antonio, Texas. And you're also the athletic director, which is kind of cool. And one of the reasons I'm glad you're on, because I think a lot of coaches can get a lot of insight from your AD mind, not just your football mind. But
Yes, sir.
welcome. Thanks for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, we were just talking about all of our ties. Coach grew up in that Dallas area and knows a lot of people that were playing at Missouri: Corby Jones, Steve Erickson, Curtis Jones Sr., the whole Jones family. And there's definitely some people on here watching that played in Missouri or had those ties, and just a small world. Coaching world is a small world, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
For sure.
So you, just a little background from what I could, gather, and you correct what you want, but you just finished your first season as a head football coach and AD at McCollum, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you guys went 5-5, and for people that don't know, just from my research, the last true winning season at McCollum High School was in 2011. And you've had,
Sounds about right. Yeah.
yeah. So
It's traditionally not known as a football, powerhouse or anything. San Antonio is very ethnically diverse and kind of split up in little pockets. And it's on the south side, which is the old side of town, the prideful side of
yeah.
town. But you get up against, like the hill country area. That's where most of your better athletes are. And you get put in district with them, and it's tough. It's tough.
It
And
is.
so they've done that for decades. And so, the success just hasn't been here quite as much.
So I recruited when I was coaching at Missouri. I had from San Antonio all the way up to Grapevine, and then I had I had the Fort Worth area, the DFW area, and Arlington, and all that. So I'm pretty familiar with what you're talking about, with the hill country and the pockets and stuff like that. So you guys went 5-5, which to me, and I'm sure to you, being in your first year, I mean, that's a success. And I know we don't necessarily measure successes by wins, but coming into a situation where they've won 5 games in 3 seasons since that 2011 season, and this was the third time. What do you think when you got there? What was the most important thing that you wanted to do in order to get kids truly buy in?
Well, the thing that, to me, there was always kind of this mentality that it was almost like they were always trying to prove something, like kind of, everybody's against us all the time. We've got to fight uphill. We've got to dig out of this hole. It's kind of, it was close to a victim mentality. And
Yeah.
even though our community is a strong community, like, I mean, it's 2-parent households, it's blue collar, it's, parents own small businesses. They're very, very hardworking. A lot of them are first or second generation Americans, that come over from Mexico, but they are hardworking, just great people. But there's this mentality that they're supposed to be kept down, kind of. And that's just kind of this feeling that I had looking, as like in at the fishbowl from looking on the outside. And so when I came in, I wanted these kids to see basically everything they needed to be grateful for. And my approach was, guys, nothing good is going to happen unless you have a grateful heart. You need to look around and see what you have. Whenever we have an event, it's a packed house. We have one of the nicest stadiums in San Antonio. Our facilities are amazing. Like, anything we want, the community gives for us. Like, you are the pride of the community, and you need to be grateful for that. Like, nothing's ever going to come. There's always going to be something that you want to be more thankful for, but you should be
Right.
thankful for the things that you have. And so that was my message in the interview. That was my message when I first met the team. That was my message when I first met the community. That was the message when I first met the teachers. I was like, we've got to let these kids know how good they do have it, and that there is no excuse, and that we should be grateful for everything that we have.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you did when you first got there that, action items, whatever you want to call it, when you first got there that really, you know, when you look back that says, I'm glad we did that because kids that were kind of on the fence or kids that had that victim mentality that didn't realize how good they had it. What were some of the things that you guys did, you and your staff did when you first got there to really sell it for a lack of better terms or,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
I think it was intentional. When I came in, I was like, guys, I hear a lot of yelling. I hear an occasional cuss word. It's not bad, but I was just like, we need to elevate the praise. We need to praise loudly. We need to praise loudly, and if we do need to criticize, we need to kind of do that softly. Like,
right.
that needs to be a one-on-one conversation. It doesn't, it just felt like, these kids were used to getting yelled at. They were used to, and it didn't need to be like that. And so I just wanted the positive, to be highlighted. And so anything we did, we celebrated the positive. One thing that we do every day now. It's just what we do. It's a habit. Is I always thank the kids for being there and for their effort, because they don't have to be. Like, I'm like, you guys just worked your butts off for the last 55 minutes straight. You worked your butts off. I was like, but in 10 minutes, you're gonna get in the shower and you're gonna feel amazing, and you're gonna feel like the best you can have. So, guys, thank you for showing up and for doing that, and I love you guys. And then they go around and we thank the kids for being there, and they thank the coaches for
Yeah.
pouring into them, and we all fist bump. And it's just, I mean, now it's just, we don't even think about it. We just do it. And that's the way every practice ends, every workout ends, is we all thank each other for being there and thanking for, them doing the hard work and us pouring into them.
Yeah.
And they're grateful to our coaches. And now we just have this relationship between our staff and our kids, where it's just a lot more trust. It's a lot more trust, and the kids want to be there, and they want to show up, and they want to get better.
Good. I've interviewed a lot of coaches and had a lot of guests on here that have talked about two things you just mentioned, and that's love and gratitude. And I think you're right. I think back when you and I were growing up, and even though I'm a little bit older than you, I mean, it's the same era, right? Um, it was understood that if you played football, you were going to go out, you were going to get yelled at.
Hmm.
But you that was just kind of, I don't want to say it was a standard, but it was the expectation. And that's
Hmm.
just what happened. And the majority of the time as a player, when you walked off that field, you knew that your coach still loved you. It was
Right.
almost like this deranged type of mentality where if coach doesn't yell at me today, then he doesn't care about me.
Right.
And
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
mean, I remember my head high school coach, still alive, 80 years old, named Steve Grady, legendary coach in California, 5'7", ex tailback, backed up OJ Simpson at USC. And he'd run, 4 miles a day and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
And every single day he was just chomping at the bit to get at me. And
Hmm.
even though it got annoying at times, I appreciate it, but times have changed. Parents have changed. Parenting has changed with the influx of social media and everything else. Kids need to feel like they're loved and they need to have gratitude. And that's where that trust comes in, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, like, and don't get me wrong. There's still yelling that goes on.
Yes.
There's still, but they again, they know where it's coming from. I guess we just kind of had this understanding, a little bit
Yeah.
different. To now, I think you have to set that relationship up a little bit more on the front end, to be able to coach football hard, the way you
Yeah.
do. But yeah, our kids, I mean, they get it. They don't cower down to the yelling. They respond. They're yes sir kids. for I mean, I've had a few parent issue,
Right.
you're not even issues, but a few parent conversations and things like that where they question this and that. But for the most part, we don't have any because they know where we're coming from. They know the place we're coming from, and it's just seems to be fine.
Yeah, and I think with that mentality of, make sure they know that you love them, make sure that they know that you're invested with them, being transparent, being thankful for them being there. When you do yell as a coach, they take it completely different.
Sure.
They don't
Yeah.
take it as coach doesn't like me.
Right.
Um, and so that's the setup. Let me ask you this because talking about development, talking about leadership, that kind of stuff. I want to ask you about the crossover from being a head coach to an athletic director. Um, because you're not only in charge of all the kids that are playing the sport of football, but you're also the leader of the entire athletic department
Yes.
at McCollum. So what do you feel like is most important that you guys are doing in regards to all of your student athletes and how you're developing their character, their leadership, their faith, if they're into that, um, to understand in a day and age where everybody feels entitled, where and follows our followers,
Mhm.
where we need more leaders and more strong people of character in our society.
Well, I think one thing that and again, we're in the early stages of this because it's just been a year since I've
Right.
gotten here. I hit the anniversary date just a couple weeks ago. But we had to hire a new basketball coach, and so you know, to me that's good because you come in together, and it's my
Mhm.
hire and it's kind of easy, to go with that. And but everybody else was existing. But the good thing is that everybody here seems to be a team player, like everybody. Our soccer coach will drive buses for us when we get in a pinch, for football, things like that. My defensive coordinator is driving the baseball team today, to their game, just things like that. Everybody's always willing to pitch in and help out. But I think the message to everybody has been consistent. First of all, the first message is that we are going to share athletes. Football players are going to play basketball. They're going to play baseball. Everybody's going to run track. I mean, everybody can come out to a track meet on Thursday afternoon or whatever, even if they're playing baseball on a Friday or a Tuesday. We're
Yeah.
going to share athletes, and our best athletes are going to play everything. And it's just because they need to be there for the McCollum Cowboys. Nobody needs to be there for themselves. And so that message has been very well received. In the summers, um, when we do workouts and things like that, we do sports specific stuff, but we all end up in the weight room together and we all, and it makes it a little bit more chaotic. It would be better if I just had the football players in there from an efficiency standpoint, but in the summer, you got a little bit longer. We get the basketball team in there with us. The baseball kids come in there with us and we all lift together because I just want everybody, you know, working with one another, and that way, the relationships are good, cross sport, things like that. We influence going to we you know have rewards for kids going to other sports games,
Good.
if they're not playing, we play at home tonight. If you go, this, you get a free whatever, I mean, we try to incentivize it as much as we can to be at each other's competitions. And like I said, our community shows up to everything. I mean, everything is always full, everything's always busy. So that's a good thing. But we just try to have this mentality that, we're there for each other and that we're going to share, and that, coaches, as far as like expectations for the coaches, I mean, you're in season, you're going to lift 2 times a week. Out of season, you're going to lift a minimum of 3. You are going to have some sort of leadership program installed in your off season. There's just certain baseline things, but as far as like, X's and O's, or I leave the expertise to those coaches. I'll fully support you. And then one thing I do say is, but everything you say to your kids, everything has got to be defendable. If a parent comes to
Yeah.
me and says this, we've got to be able to defend it. And so, choose your words carefully. And I tell it to the coaches, I tell it to the kids. Your words can do one of two things. They can speak life into somebody, or they can speak death into somebody. You can be building
That's
somebody
great.
up, you can be tearing them down because words do matter. And so, it's just frame your coaching, frame your conversations, frame your things with those things in mind. And, we haven't had many issues.
Yeah, and there's so many follow-ups, and I'll try and get to them piece by piece, but I wanna ask you about that because as head football coaches, building a culture, building a football culture is one thing, right? We implement standards, we for our players, for our coaches, we have our expectations as well, we do our leadership stuff, we do our staff development stuff, um but I always I and it's why I created the MTTS sports group, and I'll tell you more about this later, but, it's to build systems that I didn't have access to when I was a head coach, and regardless of how many mentors I had, I had, problems every day, we find solutions, right? But the thing that I didn't necessarily have was a concrete system to implement those solutions in. So, with that said, one of the big things I'm working on are with athletic directors to implement a system for standards for culture as an athletic department as a whole. Being a head football coach too, I mean, your knowledge in that area is probably greater than most. Um, so is that something you do with your head coaches from all sports? Do you meet with them and say, "Hey, these are the standards of the McCollum athletic department based off of our own sports, but also our school and our district."
Yeah, I
So
mean,
all the head coaches are on the same page, I guess.
yeah. So I mean, from a district level, I mean, our superintendent, it was up for superintendent of the year for the whole state of Texas, and we're a pretty
Wow.
small school district, and
Yeah.
so like he is a exceptional. I mean, he's an old basketball coach, um, you know, and so he loves sports and he understands the importance of sports. We do have McCollum has always had this standard. Like if you put on a McCollum jersey, if you're representing McCollum at any point, there's no earrings. If you do have a tattoo, it has to be covered. You don't wear slides on the bus to games. I mean, I don't feel like they're outrageous rules.
No.
They're just standards, and our kids know them and they adhere to them. And so I mean, that's across the board on everything. As far as coaches, we have a monthly meeting that we get
Good.
together and just kind of fill each other in, make sure we're on the same page. But everybody knows, what we're about and what we're supposed to be. And that came long, long before I got here. I mean, it's just the way this place has always conducted itself. And I mean, it's those things are reiterated, those things are brought up. Um, if a coach, doesn't meet the standard or the criteria, then our first way to handle it is to help the coach, is to correct it,
Yeah. Good.
explain I mean, we're not looking to get rid of anybody. We're looking to make everybody better, and that's one thing that's great about this place is, I make 11, so there's 10 on our football staff. 7 of the 10 played at either at McCollum or at Harlandale High School, which is the other high
In
school
the
in our
district.
district.
Yeah.
And so it's all hometown. Everybody comes back. They know what it is. They know how the community is. And so the standard just kind of sets itself. You just got to keep it. You got to keep the standard.
Yeah. And but that's also a hard thing to do in today's, like you said, I mean, you get parents, social media, a lot of outside noise, and it's hard to maintain that. So kudos to your district and to both schools in your district to maintain that. And it don't you think it definitely helps to have, like you said, 7 of the 10 assistants are from that area, went to one of the 2 high schools, and they it's almost like that old school mentality where they've been around and it's kind of recycled itself to where, and like you said, you're in an area that is a blue collar, hardworking, yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, community shows up. That's rare,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And
Um,
that's what was so appealing to the job. I didn't care, that they didn't have a track record of winning. I
yeah,
looked and mean, first of all, I saw the facilities and I saw the community commitment that they were building. Like our stadium's 2 years old and it's state of the art. Our locker rooms are top notch. They built a whole new basketball arena. They built a tennis center. They built a softball and baseball, complex with turf fields and things. And so I
Wow.
saw that the community was committed because they're passing bonds to do this. Like people are willing to pay more taxes so our kids have better things. And so I just saw that. And then like the Harlandale McCollum game, it's Cowboys versus Indians. We call it the Frontier Bowl. It's the biggest thing going in the city. And so you have two relatively small schools. We're smaller 5A schools. Our high schools are about 1,500 kids or so. But like you'll have 13, 14,000 people at our football game whenever we play each other. And so like I knew there was a commitment. I knew it was important here. And now it's like, you can build off that. Like, yeah, you're going to be out athleted in some games and things like that. But if you're building a program, you need commitment. And so I
Yeah.
knew the community was going to be committed. So I was like, this could be a great place. And so that was kind of the thing that attracted me to try to get this position whenever it came open.
You've been a lot of places. You've been the head coach at Baytown Lee and athletic director, but you've also been the coordinator and assistants at a lot of different places in the state. Um, have you experienced and I know, I mean, everybody knows about Texas high school football, right? And how involved, the communities are, but have you ever experienced such strong um, such a strong feel from the community as you do, at McCollum?
Well, yeah, I mean, the place I came from, that's up in the hill country, just north of San Antonio. And we played in the state championship a few years ago and been to the semis a couple times in the last few years, and had a really good run there. That's a super super tight community. I mean, like
Yeah,
it's I'm almost Hollywood-esque, the way it's depicted. And I mean, and that, to me, like the big fight there was, and the kids were great, but the fight was that it was like, guys, this is not the pinnacle of your life, even though it seems
yeah,
like it is right now, and everybody loves you and everybody revolves around you. You're gonna go do great things, like because the kids are just, they'd be like, I can't believe it's over. Like, whenever we would finally lose, in week 15 or 16 or whatever it was. And you're just, so I mean, to me, that was kind of the role as the coach then, like, because we were going to win. We were going to win like crazy and we were going to score points. And we were going to do that. But it was, hey, we are building you to be a better man, later in life. And then when I coached in Houston, uh, coached at this huge high school, Dickinson High School, a lot of SEC kids, a lot of pro athletes, come out of there. This school is like 4,200 kids. And so you're just picking from the best. And
right.
that was I mean, that was like, that's like coaching in college. I
Yeah,
mean, it's over 10,000 fans every game. I mean, it's awesome. Like and you're playing big time football where half the kids on the field are D1 or D2. And,
yeah.
but the community was super tight there too. So, my last few stops have been great, great places, kind of worked my career to get to those places. But, yeah, I mean, it's every community is different, but they all love their team, and
What
they all love their kids.
why do you think the state of Texas, when it comes to that type of a scenario, because I've seen track meets. I've been to track meets in Texas, and there's thousands and thousands of people, right? I've been to wrestling matches. I've been to basketball games, and it's like you just look around, you're like, my gosh, like everybody, it's like the thing to do. And it's the only state I've ever been to, recruiting, coaching, playing, whatever, that has that kind of buy-in, um, you know, for their high school athletes. What
Mhm.
what do you think makes the state different? I mean, the
Well,
education is phenomenal in the state as well. So it's kind of the same thing. Is it the whole
yeah, I mean,
system just in general?
well, so we do. We have great public schools here, and I think we have great public schools because, you know, the emphasis is on. I think athletics helps. I mean, I think our extracurricular activities help. Because kids want to go to certain schools. because of there's certain programs. If a kid is great in marching band, they want to go to school and be good in the marching band. And I think there's a lot of things. First of all, we have an athletic period, or we have a band period for our kids, and so that draws the kids to going to school. That gets them in school. Yes, they go to math and English and all that, and that's the most important. But what gets them to school is their extracurricular interest. And so for a good chunk of their day, they get to do what their passion is and what their interest. So we have that set alone athletic period, football or baseball or whatever it is that they get to go to, for an hour a day. Um, I don't know how it got to be so great, but I think one of the things that keeps us great is that our athletics is governed by our coaches, and nobody messes with it. No school administrators. We have the strongest athlete. We have the Texas High School Coaches Association is 18,000 people strong, and we govern ourselves. And the more experienced coaches that know what work set out the rules and set out the guidelines, and we vote for those guys. And it's an honor to be a part of that system. And so they know what works. They know what keeps everybody competitive. They know what is fair. And so and they're always evolving, and they're always getting better and better. And so we have a say in that through elections and things like that. And we elect the guys that and girls that know what works. And so that keeps us strong. And just I mean, even our legislators don't mess with it because they know it works and they know it's good, and that's what keeps us competitive. And so when you put a good product on the field, and you keep your kids, and your kids are your hometown kids that grow up, the community wants to watch them, and it just keeps it strong, and it just continues and continues to have success.
So let me just clarify this because most states with their interscholastic association, regardless of what state it is, most states, the board members, the people that run the interscholastic organization or association are usually individuals that have been prior principals, prior athletic directors, even coaches, but are no longer active within the education, the high school athletic setting. And you're telling me in the state of Texas, all your interscholastic association is really governed by active members of your education system and coaching system and coaching.
So the Texas High School Coaches Association is it's the biggest of its kind in the world. Okay. And our president, that the president of the Texas High School Coaches Association, for the last I've been in it 25 years. For the last 25 years has been a active head football coach in Texas doing that. Everybody that sits on the board is an active coach, whether they're volleyball or whatever. They get elected by their region. They get, and I mean, it's a lot of work on them, but
Yeah,
they do
yeah.
it because they know that's what keeps it great. Now, there are two former retired coaches that are the heads, the directors of the association, but they don't have a voting say. They don't have anything. All they do is help facilitate for the coaches that run it, from the top level down. So like I was very fortunate that at Dickinson, my head coach was the president of the Texas High School Coaches Association. And so like I got to be mentored by that guy
That's
who's seen
awesome.
it all, done it all, whatever. And so I mean, he's still my biggest mentor today in the business. And so yeah, I mean, it's active coaches. I mean, and that's what it
That's
is.
incredible. That is the epitome of quote unquote. We always hear a player led team. The most successful teams are the ones that are truly player led. And that epitomizes that phrase
Yeah,
to me
absolutely. Yeah.
because if
I mean, that's right.
it's I mean, it's a coaches led organization, and uh, I had no idea. I did not know that. That is incredible,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I don't know how other states can do it. They won't, but good for you guys. Good for the
Yeah,
state
and
of Texas.
I don't know when that started, but we've kept true to the process, and that to
Yeah,
me, that's the ingredient for success.
it's the right way to do it. It's really the only way to do it because because coaches know the inner workings not only of their sports but just of the landscape and how it changes. And so in order to keep it consistent, Yeah, that's good. I know there's again a lot of states, and I'm kind of jumping outside of um, you guys individually, but um, w- what kind of two things? Do you guys have open enrollment in the state of Texas, and do you see much transferring within schools? Because I know for our country in high school sports, that's a big issue.
Yeah, so, there are some a district can choose to be open enrollment, and
Okay.
so yes, there are open enrollment districts, some aren't, some are so packed and so exclusive that they, "Hey, we're just taking our area." You know, I'm in a district that is open enrollment, because, quite frankly, you get paid by the kid, that's how you
Mhm.
get your state money is, the more enrollment you have, the more
Right.
money you have, and, the more funding you have, and so that's the enticement there. As far as transferring high school to high school and things like that, it happens. I mean, it does.
Right.
The better programs get the better players
Mhm.
sometimes, but there is a system of regulation in place. We have this thing called the PAPF. It's governed by our uh, coaches association by our rules, and basically it's the previous athletic participation form. So if you've been in a school from eighth grade on and you transfer schools, you have to prove residency. You have to prove that you didn't leave for academic purposes, or I'm sorry, athletic purposes. You have to prove that you were in good standing with your former program. Your previous coach has to sign off that he doesn't think you're leaving for athletic purposes. And then, like, it's not just black and white. There's gray area in there because if a kid wants to leave, or if a kid wants to, and they, my deal is if they actually pick up and move, you know, and they want to go, well, then, I don't want to hurt the kid and
Right.
keeping an
Right.
eligible and things like that. But you know, they're not going to live in my attendance zone and just go hop to another school. But
Yeah.
but then I also say, like, if I'm running a good program and I'm treating the kids right, and they know that they're going to be treated well. They know they're going to be treated fair. They know we're going to, then you're not going to have many leave. Now, are you going to have some leave? Yeah. I mean, a
Mhm.
lot of times, a kid will leave. Like a split home, where they could go to this school or they could go to this school, and they'll choose to go to the other school because they're kind of sold a bill of goods, that doesn't always come true. I've seen it a lot. Kids will leave your school, they'll go to the other one, and then, by next semester, they're back because,
Right.
I mean, now that there's some bigger schools in Houston, a lot more recruiting goes on to the bigger schools and things like that because, I mean, you're talking about top tier kids and they want to be in top tier programs and, things like that. And so, I mean, in Texas, you see the same schools going to the state championship, especially in 6A and 5A. You see the same schools all the time because the recruiting goes on and the kids.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if the coaches are recruiting or if the kids just gravitate to that program because they've been so successful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but there is a process of checks and balances that you got to go through. There's sets of parameters. We do try to police it pretty well. Um, and, I've seen kids get rejected, and have to sit a year
Right.
and things like that. But
Yeah.
but ultimately, if a kid wants to go to another program, they can do it.
Yeah. Um, from a development standpoint, when you got in there, what was one goal that you really wanted to accomplish your first season, um, in regards to leadership development? And I ask this question a lot because I think a lot of coaches that I've talked to have more questions than answers on it, right? It's most coaches can identify the leaders, right? Not the captains, but can identify the kids, regardless of age, regardless of grade, who their leaders are or are going to be in the future. That's not an issue. What seems to be the biggest, where guys have the biggest hiccup is really the development of those leaders
Mhm.
for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 1 year. What do you guys what was your one goal when you came in regards to leadership and in the development of all your athletes, all your football players, from a leadership standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I had a specific goal, but I did like we talked about earlier. I want our team to be player led, because that's
Yeah.
you're gonna get your best outcome whenever the players have accountability and ownership over that. And so, the first thing, and this is just jumping out to me right now, is that kids are born leaders. You can teach it, you can bring it out of people, but kids are going to gravitate to certain kids. Now that goes both ways. There's two sides of that coin. I'm thinking of a specific freshman that I have right now. He is no doubt the leader of that grade. They do whatever he says. They gravitate to him. They all look at him. Unfortunately, this kid, he's always in trouble. He's always doing bad. He's always stirring up crap. It just followed him around and around and around. So, like, I called him in early and I was like, here's the deal. You're the leader of the team. There's no doubt about it. Now, are you going to lead the way that I want you to, because you're a McCollum Cowboy and you want to buy in? You're going to lead us to good, or are you going to continue the way you're going? I'm not gonna, I'm not asking you to. I'm not going to say you behave or get out of here or any of that stuff. I'm just saying your leadership matters. Are you going to bring this place down, or are you going to bring this place up? Because if you bring this place down and you swim against the stream, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to drown, and you won't make it. And I was like, and I'm
Right.
going to tell you this right now. Like, whether you're here or not, McCollum will play football. Whether I'm here or not, McCollum will play football. So don't think just because you're the leader now that you're bigger than the program. So you've got to choose how you want to lead. Because if you're leading in the wrong way, you won't make it here in 4 years. I can just tell you that right now. You'll sink. And so like, the good kids that want to lead, you want to bring it out in them. You're like, hey man, you have a leadership program. I mean, like, I already know we'll have an election. We'll vote our 4 captains next year. The kids will get a say. The coaches get a double say, even though I don't tell the kids that. But and then ultimately it's going to be the 4 guys that I think,
Right.
however the election goes. But everybody thinks it's 100% democratic process. But we know who those 4 are going to be. All right. So the deal is like, we know those 4 are gonna raise everybody's level. Now, where are we raising the level from? We want everybody to hear the same thing. We teach them how to lead. We have an 18-week leadership program
Good.
in our off season. We break it down into 3 6-week segments. We test at the end of those segments as far as like weights and things. And then we have 6 leadership talks within those 18 weeks. How we do it is there's a program down here that we bought. It's a leadership program that it's videos and things like that. And so we watch a video one day a week. It's about 5 minutes, and then a coach takes that topic. The coach speaks on that topic, whatever. Like this week, it's hard work is the theme. And so we had a kid. We watched the video on Monday. We had a coach speak um, today, and then a kid will speak on the topic. He met with the coach, watched the video before, and then he gives his take on hard work. And so by the time you do it, you have 18 kids that speak on a leadership process. They're usually seniors, but they don't have to be. But it's kids that the coaches pick that, hey, I see him in a leadership role. And so now you instead of 4 leaders, you have 18 leaders, all right, on your team. Those 18 leaders all have little pockets and circles of friends that they're influencing. And so it kind of rises everybody up. It's the Urban Meyer above the line, idea that we want to bring everybody up above that line. And we just do that by casting a wider net of leadership. So they're not always hearing from me all the time. They're in those 18 weeks, they're hearing from every single coach. They're
Good.
hearing from 18 different kids. And so your leadership just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the kids gravitate and now we know kind of the way we do things. And it's the
That's
Cowboy way.
good.
It's our brand.
That's good. It's funny because leadership's always a sticky subject in my opinion, and all these leadership training or speaking or culture, seminars that I'm doing, it's when we talk about leadership, I always tell people leadership, being a leader isn't fun. Like everybody thinks it's about titles. It's not fun. And when you are a leader, like the kid you were just talking about specifically, like the first thing you have to do is recognize it. Whether it's someone telling you or you just know it, you have to recognize it, and then you have to embrace it. You have to understand it's not fun. I mean,
Right.
people say it's a responsibility. It's absolutely a responsibility. But again, you have to embrace it and understand that there's a lot of times where people aren't gonna like what you have to say or even like you. But the fact is, even when they don't, you still have an impact on the way that they do things. And it starts, I have a leadership pyramid that I share with everybody too. And it's 5 stories, and the foundation is you have to self-lead. The second, after you have to do that at all time, right? Self-leadership. And then the next, tier is peer leadership, where you just pull one person aside and you kinda mentor them. And then the next area is group leadership, so like a position coach, right? And then area leadership would be like your coordinator, and then organization leader would be the ultimate leader. The buck stops with that person, the head coach or the athletic director. And I mean, it's funny because you talk about it, your coaches, and it's so important that everybody speak the same language in your program to truly be successful, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I want to end it, and I could keep going, Coach. I can, but I try to keep these under 45
Sure.
minutes. But
Yeah.
I want to end with this because I just doing my research, I caught something that really kind of hit my heart, um, because I've been in that situation, and even though I had the blessing of my family and my children, I have 3 grown boys, um, it still hit me hard, and when I became a head coach, I had a son, my oldest, that had just graduated, went on to Weber State to play. But my middle son was going to be a junior, and he was starting a linebacker for a 6A school in Arizona. And then my youngest son was going to be in 8th grade. And so, and I didn't want either one of them to come to school where I was coaching.
Hmm.
The school that they went to, their uncle was the head coach, and it was one of the best in Arizona. Um, so you took this head job, and your son, was he is he a senior this year?
He's a senior. Yes. Yeah.
And he was playing football, right?
Yeah. So I have two boys. One of them is a freshman at Texas A&M.
Okay.
He played for me all 4 years, and then his little brother Bobby, who is a senior now, he played for me for 3 years. And then yeah, his senior year, I took this job, and we were in the same district. We play each other, and he I gave him the option. I said, "Hey, man, yeah, of course, I would love for you to come play with me. You're our starting corner. Obviously, if you start Boerne, you're going to be our starting corner at McCollum. But I get it. If, you
Yeah,
make the decision, whatever you want to do." And I mean, he was just like, "Dad, I'm staying at Boerne." Like, he's like, it's fine. And all his friends were there, and I mean, it's just that's who he grew up with. And
yeah,
he had always been a greyhound. And so it really wasn't much of a decision. My wife teaches in the same school district where he goes to
okay.
school. And so and like, I mean, when I
How was it for you, though? How did you find that balance? Because I think we're not the only 2 coaches that have this experience. How did you balance, um, being the head football coach at McCollum, and you having all these kids that you're basically raising as your own, sons and daughters,
Mhm.
to being at home, maybe being able to hit a game here and there, depending on your schedule and when
Well,
things
let
got
me tell
done.
you about the greatness of Texas high school football coaches, man.
Alright,
All right. So when I got this job, I got the schedule, and because a lot of teams share stadiums.
okay,
We'll have three schools in a independent school district that share one stadium. And
right,
so some teams play on Thursday nights every once in a while. It's kind of a Friday night lights is the thing, but you're going to have two or three Thursday night games throughout the year. Okay, so I got our schedule, I got Bernie's schedule, and Bernie's head coach is like my best friend. Okay, like
right.
we've coached together. Our kids are like cousins. I mean, we've raised them together. So I got my schedule, I got Bernie's schedule, and I started looking at school districts. First of all, I wanted to see how many games I could go to. I could go to 2 games. It was a Thursday and a Friday offset, something like that. So, and then we were going to play each other. So 3, but I was gonna be pretty busy that night, so I wasn't gonna get to focus on him. So anyways, so I started noticing I would look at school districts and I'd be like, hey, they play on Thursday, they play on Friday, whatever. So I just started calling coaches and I was like, hey, look, David Wilkinson, McCollum. Hey, yeah, coach, I know you, whatever. Hey, my son, I left at Boerne. He's a senior. I noticed you have a Friday night game then. Is there any way you're playing Boerne on a Friday night? Well, I play on a Friday night. Is there any way y'all could get your stadium on a Thursday and give them? He's like, well, I mean, let me call my athletic director and see, and like I did that to 4 schools. All 4 of them changed their schedule. So I got to see my
It's
son play
unbelievable.
6 times.
Good
And
for
and
you.
then, I got to see him play through the playoffs.
Playoffs, right?
Um, eh, uh, when we played at Boerne, they switched their senior night for my son to be our game. So I got to walk my son out before the game on his senior night. And so like I just asked and people were so gracious to do it, and so I mean, of course, I had his huddle log in and I was watching all his,
Yeah.
stuff, I mean, I would sneak in and, watch his practices and make sure, I mean,
Yeah.
because I had time to do that, a little bit of time to do that. But I mean, I was super involved, but I'll tell you what, it was great. Like I got to be dad, I'd
Yeah.
never, like, I mean, I would wear purple and I would show up on, Friday. We'd play on a Thursday night. I'd show up on a Friday night or vice versa. And, my coaches were great. Like if Boerne played on a Thursday night, my coaches, I was like, guys, I'm not going to be at the freshman JV games tonight. I'm sorry. I'm going to watch Bobby. And they're like, coach, we got it. It's all good.
Yeah.
Just
Good.
text me, let me know how it is. And it was awesome because you know, uh, we have a couple kids on our team. Their dad coaches at UTSA. And so he and I would sit up there with our wives, here we are.
Just
And man, we
watching
got
it.
to watch our kids play.
Good.
And it was great. And so
Yeah.
we loved it. I mean, we embraced it, like I'll just show you right now. I got it right next to me. Every picture for the last 18 years has been our family all in the same colors, but this year we took our picture and I'm in my McCollum stuff, Bobby's in his Bernie stuff, Brooks is in his A&M stuff, and
That's
it's
awesome.
that's where we're at in our life, and
That's
and
cool.
we embraced it and we loved it,
Good.
So
Well, good
yeah,
for you. That's I was curious about that, and I wanted to get yours because I had my own thing too. Because the first couple of years, I was at my first head job was at kind of a school that had notoriously the tradition was incredible, but they had been down for quite some time. So even though we had the first winning season in, I don't know, 13, 14 years when I got there, we didn't make the playoffs. And then
mhm,
the next year we didn't. And so I was able to, and then our games seemed to be get over a lot quicker. So I'd jump in my car and race over and get to see the last half or last quarter and a half. And
yeah.
so it was hard, but it was fun. It
Yeah,
was
I'll tell
fun.
you what,
So
one that got me, and this is I know you gotta end, but they're playing it's the 2 best teams in Central Texas, Boerne and Alamo Heights, and they're playing basically for the district championship. And we end our game, and I knew it was a tight game. Everybody's like, "Hey, did you score Boerne at halftime?" Whatever. It's like 3 point. Just they kept trading scores, whatever. And so I mean, I'm literally walking off the field, and I have my cell phone in my pocket. And I call my wife, and I'm like, "Hey, who are we gonna win? Like, what's going on?" She's like, "We're up by 3. They're driving." She's like, "They're like running out of time. The quarterback's scrambling, all this stuff, whatever." And then my son got the game-winning interception, and my wife just loses it. She's like, "Oh my God, Bobby got the game-winning interception," whatever. And I just started bawling, crying. I
yeah,
was just like, "Holy,
yeah,
I can't believe I'm not there." Whatever. Like we'd just gotten our butt kicked. We drove down to Victoria and got our butt kicked, so I was just like, wow, I can't believe I missed it, but that,
changes.
other than that, I never had like a fear of missing out, like
Yeah, yeah,
I felt like it worked out really, really well.
yeah. That's awesome. Well, Coach Wilkinson, I really appreciate you jumping on. And we'll have you back. This has been great, and kudos to you guys and your family. And um, sounds like you're super super happy, and the community's very fortunate to have you, and vice versa with you being involved in them. So
Yeah.
good work.
Well, it's a great place to be. I'm super fortunate to be here, and so I love my job, and it's a great decision. I'm going to be here for a while,
Good,
so
good.
appreciate you having me, man. This
Yeah,
is fun.
yeah, Coach, hang on just a sec. I'm gonna stop the recording, but I wanna this needs to upload, and then I wanna shoot something past you real quick, okay?
Okay,
Thanks, Coach.
thank you.